Today we're going to begin with the story of two brothers. Growing up, they were only 3 years apart. Naturally, they played the same sports and watched the same TV shows. One day, this all changed abruptly. Their mother sat the youngest brother down to tell him news that his brother was autistic and suffered from some degree of intellectual disability. Nothing had changed, yet everything seemed different. As the oldest brother grew up, he wanted a life like everyone else, one that included a job, his own house, and overall independence. His parents were not in agreement. They didn't have the heart to tell him that, like most developmentally disabled children, he would never find employment as an adult. However, today at age 22, the oldest brother is well on the way to independence. Sure, he never attended college like his youngest brother, but he found hope in education in a private organization, Project Search. Project Search is a transitional organization that believes that developmentally disabled individuals can take charge of their lives. Over the course of 4 years, it develops the talents of a participant in order to achieve an independent livelihood that includes a stable job. For those of you who haven't already guessed, this is my story. Or should I say, my brother's story. While my brother's story seems inspiring, it is far from the norm among developmentally disabled individuals. Fortunately, school systems have developed special education curriculums that aid students throughout high school. But what happens to them afterwards? Research has demonstrated that a lack of employment opportunities leaves them without financial opportunities, satisfying social relationship, and leisure time activities. This presentation will seek to explore the main components of this complex issue. First, we'll take a look at social stigma that has emerged and how it influences self-perception. Then, we'll move to how the social stigma has influenced current vocational programs. And finally, we'll study organizations that try to disrupt the stigma. Ultimately, I wish to argue that current programs for the developmentally disabled are wrongly rooted, whether consciously or unconsciously, in the stigma. I will conclude with an outline of recommendations for a model that empowers the developmentally disabled to realize their talents and independence. So let's begin with the discussion around the social stigma that surrounds developmental disabilities. Before we understand the stigma, however, we must understand the disability. The Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, or DSM, defines a developmental disability as a mental or physical impairment manifested before the age of 22 that results in limitations in one of the following: capacity for independent living, economic self-sufficiency, learning, mobility, receptive and expressive language, self-care, and self-direction. More concrete examples that you guys might know include autism, cerebral palsy, epilepsy, and mental retardation. Out of this very definition, we can see potential for social stigma around developmental disabilities to arise. Cambridge professor R.F. Khan argues that developmentally disabled individuals are segregated from the rest of society, both consciously and unconsciously. This is based on a belief that they are more dependent, socially inadequate, and mentally incompetent compared to a normal person. Jehoda Markova, researchers at the University of Glasgow in the United Kingdom, explain that the social belief negatively impacts self-perception of an intellectually disabled individual. They draw upon famous psychologist Charles Cooley's looking glass theory, which is best summed up by, "I'm not what I think I am, and I'm not what you think I am. I am what I think that you think I am." In other words, developmentally disabled children become aware at an early age that they are stigmatized through interpersonal relationships. This affects overall sense of adequacy and well-being. So now we shift gears to the current state of programs designed for developmentally disabled adults. Before the 1970s, a lack of awareness of the nature of developmental disabilities landed many adults into mental hospitals and halfway houses. Here, adults were considered unfit for society. The Rehabilitation Act of 1973 attempted to foster community-based integration for the developmentally disabled. public institution created a model based on vocational rehabilitation centers. These places will foster independence with limited caretaker supervision. Although these centers represent progress, they are still implicitly governed by a social stigma of inadequacy. Charlotte Davis, senior lecturer at Swansea University in the UK, argues that the inhabitants of these centers are physically segregated. The only time they see community interaction is an occasional trip to the park. More importantly, she contends, the centers still view the developmentally disabled as less than human. They are never consulted before making decisions. They spend most of their day watching TV instead of exploring their talents. So clearly, we should not strive for a system that undervalues the developmentally disabled. But what needs to change? To answer this question, we'll take an in-depth look at two organizations, Project Search, which I've already mentioned, and the College of Adaptive Arts. So let's begin with the organization that transformed my brother's life. As I mentioned before, Project Search is a transitional organization that helps developmentally disabled young adults take charge of their life after high school. It partners with local businesses to fund a variety of employment centers for the program's participants. For example, based on my brother's interests, he was placed at a local hospital. Over the course of 4 years, he participated in a series of quarterly internships, during which he rotated through the different departments of the hospital. During his internship with the ER department, he sterilized equipment and prepared trays for surgery. When working with the HR department, he greeted patients at the front desk and even developed his own social skills. In an interview with South Florida Program Director, Dr. Bonnie Finford, she comments, "This rotational aspect is extremely important because it exposes our participants to a wide range of activities and skills. It takes them out of their comfort zone so that they may discover something new." When asked about what makes Project Search so unique, Finford answered, "It gives power to the participants. Sure, we can choose a rotational plan for them, but they're consulted every step of the way. During quarterly evaluations, they sit down and set goals for the next quarter. For the first time in their lives, they can take charge." The College of Adaptive Arts offers a similar participant-driven model. As an organization, it strives to simulate a collegiate experience. Similar to any state-level community college, students earn 60 credits in 4 semesters. As undergraduates, they pursue a core set of classes that teach leadership, communication, technical skills through an art-based curriculum. At the graduate level, students focus on a concentration in order to develop a portfolio for future employment. Unlike Project Search, however, the CAA has found difficulty in working with potential employers. In an interview with co-founder Deanna Persay, she remarks, "Recently, our artistic students worked the sound equipment at a performance. Members of the backstage crew were amazed that retarded kids managed to pull all that off." Clearly, greater community awareness needs to be established among these businesses. So from these two examples, I've distilled 4 major recommendations for improvement. First, the current model of rehabilitation centers must be replaced with a new model that focuses on participant-driven action and transition-based activities. Then these new organizations must engage the community through partnerships and awareness. A focus on participant-driven action requires a consideration of input from the user, not only from the creator, but from the user, not only from the creator. Next, as we saw in the examples of Project Search and CAA, transition is important. Developmentally disabled adults need to discover skills for the first time to enter into the workforce. Fortunately, research has already shown that there are a large number of organizations moving in this direction. However, many are doing it in isolation. This is where I'm contributing to the conversation. In order to move past the social stigma surrounding developmental disabilities, there needs to be a constant dialogue with the community. Partnerships will aid in eliminating the stigma most employers carry against these people. Out of these partnerships, awareness campaigns can be developed to promote work within the community and return developmentally disabled individuals to what they really are, normal people like you and me. Today, at 22, my brother has a stable job and is moving toward his own independence. That's what he desired as a kid, and that's what he's going to have.